welcome to another episode of Duck It. Today we have Hitesh, a guy that I met basically in COVID.
Yep.
So I met you virtually until this point. We were introduced by Amir.
Amir, yeah.
Farha.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Amir. When are you coming on the show? No pressure. And I wanted to have you on because one, I think it's important that we meet in person, and it's so great to meet you. But two, I think your story and your journey so far is an interesting one that I wish we could kind of share with the audiences. I think it could be super, super valuable to have a story of someone who's just getting started. And so, yeah, thank you for coming. You founded and launched Helwa.
Yep.
And Helwa is basically your deal, I would say, sidekick. Your deal sidekick, where you can either install it as a plugin to a browser, or you can download the app and browse existing deals or coupons or promotions that you've aggregated somehow. And so it basically, its mission is what? It's to, if you could introduce it properly, I think you do a better job than I could.
All right. So, first of all, Chris, so happy to finally meet you, seeing you face to face. This is the first time that we're actually meeting in person, so this is really cool for me. And about Helwa, Helwa just kind of came about in the midst of the pandemic. And, just sitting there and thinking, how can we help people save money, right? And I'd come across the Honey browser, and I thought, hey, this is amazing, but it doesn't work on 99% of stores in the UAE. So it's a great product for other markets. It just doesn't function on any of the stores here. And then we thought, you know what, we've got all the connections, we've got the tech know-how, we've got all the sort of industry connections to make something like this happen, like be the change you want to see, right? Yeah. So we built this product ourselves and said, hey, we'll give it out to free to everybody. And can it help us save money? It did. And then it's like, can we give it to other people and help them save money? And it did. So that was the whole purpose of doing this. We actually built this business purely as a means to help people save money.
Now, I think that's a really interesting thing. I think, first of all, as an industry, honey's kind of been a great example of what can be achieved.
Yep.
I guess for the moment, they're not super active or focused on our region, so that gives you an opportunity. But I want to take a step back because let's first look at the problem statement, because I think one thing I'd love to understand with you is why you think that problem statement is a worthy one.
Mm-hmm.
And my perspective is the following. I think the internet by default is meant to make people's lives more convenient and give them access to better services and products.
Mm-hmm.
And one big piece of convenience is pricing. It's not just receiving it at home, right? It's pricing and all that stuff. But over the years, e-commerce has kind of changed a little bit in the sense that you presume that these big e-commerce brands or players would always give you the best deal, but you eventually over time realize that that's not necessarily the case, right? And so where the internet was supposed to unlock value and convenience, nowadays I don't have the same trust that I had back in the day. I don't just think it's a question of finding the best deal or making sure I'm using a coupon, but I generally distrust e-commerce sites because there's a whole pricing kind of, I would say, misconception or strategy that's kind of been developed on the back of these brands. And so when you come up with the concept for Helwa of, let me make sure that you always get the best deal, is it based on finding you the best price or based on finding you the best offer on that site? Or is it both? What's kind of your positioning on that problem?
I think for us, it's getting you the best offer on that site. At the moment, that's what we focus on.
Sure.
But just moving down the road, there's a lot more products in development where we will be doing things like price comparisons and sort of price drop finders, all of that kind of stuff where, if, as an example, you want to buy a phone but you can't just afford it right now, you could kind of put it on your wish list, and as soon as the price drops, we'll notify you. So a lot of that is now in development.
Okay, and so for you, the problem that you're solving today is if you have a bunch of favorite sites or destinations that you go to shop, we're going to make sure that you get the best deal available so that you're always aware of any promo or coupon or what have you. That's the mission.
So, I mean, the problem is on both sides, right? So on the merchant side, you've got all these stores, and one of the things that COVID has done, right, is pre-COVID, the situation was this. It's like everybody had a retail, store, and an online store was a nice to have, right? COVID just flipped that situation around. Absolutely. Now it's like, if you had retail, it's a nice to have, but it's absolutely essential to have an online store. But having an online store comes with its own challenges. And the biggest challenge always is your acquisition of that customer. Like on average, it could cost you 18 dirhams and onwards. Even if you go to, say, a medium like, say, Google Ads, right? Average conversion on Google is, say, about 18 dirhams. Right, and if you got a product like you're selling a bar of soap and you've got a 2 dirham margin on it, does not make sense to go and spend 18 dirhams to acquire a customer. So while I think with COVID it's kind of sent a lot of sort of shoppers online, I still think there's this huge problem of acquisition, this huge problem of marketing and getting to customers. So that's on one side with the merchants. And then on the other side, we've got a sort of a slightly more cash-strapped, more cash-conscious audience on the other side, where they want value and they want things at more affordable prices. So what we're trying to solve is just trying to be the middle, bring those two together, and that's what we're trying to solve. So for the merchants, it's just the sort of acquisition model is a lot more convenient, where it's easy for these customers to discover them, find stores that they probably wouldn't have shopped at before, and hence they get all these new customers. And on the other side, the consumers get these amazing discounts and better prices than that they would normally not have got. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking that marketing cost that goes onto Google and you're passing that on to the customer and saying, hey, you know what, this now becomes your discount.
Cool, very cool. So changing gears a little bit, I never asked you this question, but I realize that I'm really curious. I love the name of your company.
Yeah, Helwa.
I think Helwa as a word, it personifies exactly the feeling of how you feel when you feel like you got a good deal or when you experience something that you made you happy.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's a story behind this. How did you come up with the name?
There isn't much of a story, man. I think it's more so like I grew up in this region, obviously, and Helwa is it's the sweet, and it's got the same meaning in Hindi as it does in Arabic.
Sure.
Where it's the sweet, and it also was something just easy that you could remember. If you remember, that's Helwa, and it's like, hey, that was easy to get. That was a sweet deal, and it was just something that probably just sticks in your mind, and that's the reason why we picked it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a brand and marketing kind of guy first, I guess. And when I saw and heard about your brand and I saw it, I was like, damn, this is so cool. I need to hear more.
Yeah.
So good on you.
Oh, hey, just to also kind of segue a little bit, but sort of. Amazing. Talking about amazing Helwa, like Omani Helwa, hands down, amazing. And then the Bahraini Helwa, they do these little Helwa and these little, like, I don't know if you ever had them do these little mini samosas with Helwa in it. They are out of this world. So if I ever go to Bahrain, I've got to go to this. I think there's a place called Shuwaiter that does the most amazing Bahraini sweets. And they do the little, if you go to Bahrain, get the little samosa Helwas because they are out of this world. Yes, and bring some back for me.
Really cool. And I wanted to ask you, so you're less than a year in.
Yep.
You just got started. And I wanted to ask you basically how it was going, because we initially met, I think, and I think we hit it off personally really well. And then we explored, like, is there something we can do together? Can our relationship be a bit more formalized? So far, not yet.
Yep.
And for a variety of reasons. But how's it going? How's raising money? How's building a product? How's building a team? Tell us, how is it actually going?
So we launched in July 2020. And I think we probably started working on the product about 3 months before then. And it was just a sort of crazy 3-month sprint because, the pandemic kind of hit and it's like, let's try and find a way to help people save money. So this is this crazy 3-month sprint of just kind of working on this product and trying to get it up and running, all of that. So we worked really hard on building this amazing browser extension. And we launched in July 2020. I think just from my sort of previous background and working in the media / event space, I think we had a lot of kind of clout with the media, and we were really lucky that even one of the PR firms that we worked with came on board and said, hey, we love your cause, we're going to help support you. And so the initial traction was amazing.
Cool.
And we got all this amazing press and all of that. So when we launched this browser extension, and we also said, hey, if you absolutely cannot install this browser extension, we're going to put together this little app in like 1 week, a mobile app, and we'll put it out there. And so if you absolutely cannot get that, this amazing product that we built, that we took 3 months to build, download this sort of companion app instead.
Sure.
And we launched the product, and then amazing traction. I think in the first month itself, we got about 1,500, 2,000 users just signing up, all organically, which is pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
And one of the things we realized though is like 90% of the users are downloading this companion app that we took 1 week to put together, and only 10% are actually downloading the extension that we put all the sweat and effort into building, and which we thought is like genuinely sort of industry changing for this market, all of that. Versus an app which was like a 1 week app that we kind of put together, and it's fairly ordinary to be quite honest.
Sure.
And then so that was a bit of a realization, right? And thinking, hey, we're 90% of our users are using the companion product, so maybe we should kind of go back and make that a whole lot better.
So sorry, what's that realization though? Because fundamentally the function that you are trying to solve, which is a plugin that will flag an offer, isn't the same experience in an app.
It's not.
So why would you? So even if 90% of your users are using the app, that's also by design from a marketing standpoint, right? Because it's so much easier to get people to track and attribution and all that stuff. Like these digital tools, these marketing tools are optimized for app downloads, not really optimized for plugins, right? And I think also as a region, we're a lot more mobile and app, right? So
absolutely.
So yes, it's a realization, but is it a good business decision to double down on that instead of go back to the fundamental of what you're offering?
Yes, I think you always have to kind of look at where the market's at. And I think if you put customers first and you try and build something that they're going to use, you could have the best thing in the world, but if no one's going to use it, then
what's the point?
What is the point, right? So I think we went back to the drawing. I mean, we didn't sort of get rid of the extension. The extension's still there. We're kind of building on it, all of that. And the people who we also find that people absolutely love us for the extension. And every time I go meet friends, and I think we're very, very lucky to have friends who sort of are sort of so caring that you kind of build something, they'll go tell all of their other friends, and they'll post on things and stuff, and I gotta go up to and talk to someone and say, hey, I really like Helwa, and this I really like what you build. It's like, hey, are you using our extension? It's like, no, we're using the app. I'm like, okay, that's awesome, but I'm almost slightly embarrassed to have put this out.
The app is just a database. Basically.
It's just a database. It's just like a little search, it's just a list of coupons, and that's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. And whereas on the.
But what does that tell you? Today you're like what? Like I guess 6 months in.
Yeah.
What does that tell you right now? How is that changing your business?
So what we've gone ahead and done is we've actually gone ahead and revamped the app completely. So we actually said, let's go put some TLC into this. If most of our users are using the app, let's go and find ways to make this a lot more valuable. So we actually, we went and redid the app. So in addition to finding you coupons, we also do cashback now. Yep. So when you actually shop on certain stores, we take we take a certain percentage of that shopping value and give it back to you as cash back. So it adds a lot more value to this app as well. So now it's
So
more.
you created your own point system or your own cashback system,
So
it's registered in a wallet of
Yeah,
sorts?
exactly. And then when you get to say about 100 dirhams or so, the money's transferred back to you,
redeem it,
or you redeem it for a gift voucher.
Sure.
So that's what we've done.
Cool. So super interesting. You're 6 months in. You've launched Helwa. You thought you were basically creating a plugin for a browser.
Yep.
You are. That is the core kind of mission and experience that you want to deliver. But you realize that in this region, most of your traffic, most of your users, 90% of them, to quote you, are app-based or app users.
Yep.
So now you've had to pivot, I guess, to some extent, because the experience is not the same. It's still based on being a database, correct?
Oh, absolutely. So I don't think we actually pivoted. So I think one of the sort of realizations,
Or refocus.
not even a little bit, not a refocus, but also just a realization of what the product actually is.
Sure.
Right. So it's in the beginning, what we kind of thought was the product is a browser extension.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we realized, that's not really the product. The product, or at least our sort of core offering, is our sort of affiliate engine, or rather, sort of an attribution engine that we have built that actually powers Helwa, or powers a browser extension, right? And what we've now found out is that attribution engine has so many applications, whether we want to use it for a browser extension, whether we want to use it for a mobile app, whether we want to use it for social commerce, and we're seeing so many more applications of that core engine, and that's what's kind of come about in the last, in just a realization in these few months, is that we've got something more powerful as a sort of core to what we do, and then we can now build so many different kind of tools out of it and kind of just meet audiences where they're most comfortable shopping.
And so it seems like in the 6 months of you being active at the moment, you've really kind of cracked or understood where you're going to go to find your customers. I think you've kind of figured that out. It sounds like that's what you've done.
Yep.
But on the other side of that, so on the other side of the equation is merchants, right? And so how are you tackling that today? I mean, I can only imagine the challenges of a new startup knocking on a merchant's door and saying, hey, I'm going to get you customers.
Yep.
Can you give me offers or exclusive deals or promos or coupons? How has that journey been so far?
Surprisingly very good. I mean, we've had, I think, probably very, very few no's so far. I think we would say like 99% yeses to most conversation, only because we offer a no risk
There's no
model.
upfront.
There's no upfront cost.
There's no cost. They don't have to develop anything.
They don't have to develop anything.
Create a promo code on their existing kind of
Exactly.
systems.
Yeah, and then and only if you ever make money from you, or do we actually charge you money.
Yeah.
So, and
It's
for
a
me,
performance-based relationship. There's nothing.
Absolutely, it's 100% performance-based and 100% risk-free. So there's absolutely no reason to say no
Most
to.
of these guys don't want to give money to Google and Facebook and Twitter and any of these guys anymore, right?
Absolutely.
Or
Like
so
I think if you could avoid it, you probably would, and you probably look at it at a different medium.
Sure. And what do you say to brands that typically are against the whole discount notion? So, I mean, what you're building is based on the user behavior that people are looking for offers and deals in order to convert.
Yep.
And what do you say to brands that say, you know what, I don't want to create that user behavior, that culture, that expectation? Is that a challenge nowadays?
You know what? There's certain brands that are never going to discount. Like Apple's, a classic case of that, where they just don't offer discounts, and that's the way that they want to kind of, position their brand, and that's fine.
Sure.
You're okay. If that's, but Apple's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So if there is a value conscious customer who would rather buy an Android at a discounted price, and then we work with those kind of brands. So for the brands that don't want a discount, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. I mean, there's other things that we're kind of working on where we have the opportunity to work with brands that don't want a discount, and I think it's just, again, going back to that core attribution engine that we've kind of built. And yeah, there's a few things that we're building for that, but for now, we're happy working with the brands that do want a discount and that do really want to offer value to their customers.
Very cool. And what's the expectation on their end? Do do you have like a live integration and API? Is there anything kind of technically required to do business with them, or is it generally just give me a promo code and an offer that's exclusive to
Right
Helwa?
now, a lot, so we do the cashbacks and we do coupons. With coupons, it's fairly easy. You give us a promo code and that's it. But we're also trying to kind of work on how we can make that a lot more efficient. So even with the promo codes, it's quite a bit of a manual process still, because it just means, hey, as an example, Chris, you've got the Duck store. So I come to you and say, hey, can we get a coupon? And say, yes, I'll put a coupon in my system. End of the month, I've got to call you and be like, hey, how many of those coupons were used? And then you send me a report. So it's still a very manual process where we're still trying to work on tech.
How many people redeemed? Then and there's a basis of relationship of trust there in order to kind of make it work, but it's still very manual.
Absolutely. And we want to try and automate that process down the road where I no longer have to call you. We instantly get, all that information. And then with the cashback, generally, you do have to implement, sort of a line of code.
Sure, because you have to be aware of what the final transaction is.
Exactly. And then get a post back and all of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So taking it to more kind of simple, non-technical conversations about the product. We've talked about the challenges of, I guess, supplier merchants and stuff like that and finding customers. How has the journey been in terms of building your core team, right? So before we started recording, you were telling me how, when you start a business, it can be quite lonely.
Yep.
It can be quite challenging doing it independently. And I completely agree with you. Sometimes I can remember the most depressing parts of my life are when, all the weight's on your own shoulders. How's it going? Who did you add? How did you grow? And tell us about how that journey's gotten better and better over time.
Yeah, I mean, being a solopreneur, honestly, it is a very, very lonely journey. But I think, for me, I think a few things have helped me. First of all, this is my second startup. And so I co-founded a company back in 2010 called T-Break Media, and was very, very fortunate to have one of the most amazing partners in the world. And I think, and it's such a great relationship there. I think the 10 years that we've worked on that company together, we've never once had an argument, and it's always been, a super supportive relationship. And I think even so, when we started Helwa, we had Abbas, who was my co-founder at T-Break. I think we kind of started together and try to say, hey, let's plan this out. Let's work on sort of getting this incubated and up and running. So it's good kind of having him help out at the beginning and exactly to bounce ideas, all of that.
Sounding board.
Absolutely. It's amazing having a good sort of sounding board. And then after that, it was more like, okay, now I just want to kind of do this, work on trying to build this on my own while he continues to work on T-Break. I'm focusing all of my time on Helwa and how to grow this. And I think the first few months of starting any kind of business are the most challenging, particularly if you were working in a very corporate business before, or you're working at a sort of startup which is in a much later stage.
I think what's unique, who does the coding? Who does the dev? Who does all that stuff? Right.
So we've got an amazing team, and they're all remote. So we've got a team based in Romania, Egypt, and India.
And that was from the first day.
Yes,
so from
absolutely.
Day one, you've had kind of resources to support you based on relationships that you had, and you've always. So when you launched and you had the vision of Helwa and what it would look like, what it would do, the function, so you would design kind of the UX, UI kind of yourself.
Yep.
And then you would kind of brief that into your extended resources or relationships that you have in Romania or et cetera, whatever.
Yep.
But you were managing the whole thing, and then you were the product manager, you were the UX, UI designer, you were the brand, CEO, brand marketing, et cetera. So when you first started, you had external resources that you could rely on to brief things in at a cost.
Yep.
But you still designed it end to end.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's my background. I do UX, UI. I design everything myself, and also just have this background in product management and project management. So it's so that's exactly how we got started.
I think it's super interesting, right? I think we don't talk about that enough. I don't think we've ever spoken about it here, about how companies need to get started. Nowadays, you hear a lot about companies who raise a bunch of super early stage money, and the founders themselves don't necessarily have the technical skills themselves, so they unfortunately have to raise a lot more money to build the organization and the structure that they need just to get a product off the ground that's pre-product. Whereas what you're describing is a lot more bootstrap, entrepreneur, do it yourself, get your hands dirty, roll up your sleeves, and kind of do it yourself kind of thing. And I feel that those types of approaches are a lot more founder friendly in my mind, because you have control, you have more equity in the business, you don't have to raise too early, etc. Would that be your recommendation to founders nowadays, to have a bit more technical skin in the game and be able to do a lot of the execution yourself?
Absolutely. I think you've got to have sort of a fundamental sort of knowledge of how your business is going to operate, like in all senses, not only from a commercial sense, but also from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
And just having a little bit of, if you're going to go and rely completely on someone else developing the product for you, you're never going to know what the limitations are, but you're also not going to know how it works and where it can scale to. So you're just still operating with sort of very limited knowledge, and that can be quite dangerous because you just don't have a clear picture of what that product can be or where it's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the next thing I want to ask you about is raising money.
Yeah.
So you've raised some money. A lot of our conversations initially were about that as well. I was interested at some point, but decided not to. At that time. What are you able to share in terms of the challenges, the opportunities, the struggles of raising money early stage in the region for the type of product that you're?
It's really tough to raise money, in this region. And I think, going and talking to, VCs, going and talking to angel investors, talking to a whole lot of people. And I think there's a little bit of, I don't know what the best way to explain it, but
you can throw me under the bus if you want.
I think
you're in a safe space.
Just for those who are probably not aware, but Chris wanted to invest in Helwa and he didn't, and he backed out pretty much at the very last minute. So thanks for that, Chris. But we persevered.
There we go.
But hey, I think it's. Again, I think for me, just because this was my second time going through the fundraising process and all that, I've just been through enough of this where I think it's okay where people want to invest and don't invest. I feel like what's worse is, and pardon the term, but going and getting brain raped, where someone will just go and be like, hey, you know what? Hey, this is an amazing idea. Can you give me all the details? And then next thing you know, hey, I either invest in another company that does exactly the same thing, or it's...
or they're building it themselves.
And I've kind of been through that process in the past. So it's like, hey, you know what? Having someone back out at the last moment, not the biggest deal, when you've kind of gone through worse. But just coming back to what the scene is like here, I think people have a sort of fixed perception in their mind of what a good founder is and what that person needs to look like. So as an example, if you had a background of being like, say, ex-Google, ex-Kareem, anyone who's already been part of $1 billion business.
You're so investable.
You're already investable before you launch a project, right? Because absolutely, because you're kind of investing in that founder. You're not really investing in the product. And then I think if you want someone to invest in the product and you don't come from a background where...
It's so interesting. I'm so happy that you said that. I think, sorry to cut you off.
But go for it.
At the moment, obviously, I think there are very good things about the hype of a huge exit like Kareem and the Kareem Mafia and the whole story. I think it's very good for the ecosystem and to bring money. I think it's generally on a high level, it's very, very good.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a, interesting concept to think that, Kareem had, 3,000 employees. I just find it mind blowing to believe that just because somebody has had some experience in one of these companies, be it Kareem, be it, any other company, that all of a sudden that person qualifies more than someone who was at, maybe, a no name or not a big exit brand. I don't generally understand that. I guess at a high level, I get it. It's a branding thing. So I understand branding and positioning and stuff like that. But it's funny how investors who know better, who should be aware of the truth because they have the knowledge of the industry still view it as an added value or something. But maybe to their defense, they don't care about the success necessarily of the company, but they care about the ability to re-raise later on for their own exit. So maybe they're right, because if what they're investing into is a hype, then having that hype attribute of a nice exit previously is going to allow him to re-raise later and get his exit.
And also,
maybe that's what it is.
And then also that I think it's a little unfortunate. There's a little bit of that culture as well, where you kind of just look at, instead of building genuinely good companies that are going to contribute to more jobs, building the economy, all of these, the good stuff. The focus isn't on sustainable businesses. It's more so, hey, what can get a quick exit? What can we make, get a quick buck out of it? I think that to me is just a little unfortunate. I think, and I think who kind of get shafted are the guys who are out there just with that vision of, hey, let's build something meaningful. Let's build something sustainable.
So how did you raise money then? Who did you kind of find? I don't think you have to tell us who invested in the business, but what's the profile of the person who ended up investing?
So the ones who ended up investing are angel investors, amazing group of people, and it's funny, like it's I think one, thanks to all the positive press that we got, we had a lot of people come to us and say, hey, we've heard about Helwa, and we like your cause, and we want to talk, and we want, and I think just with the sort of group that had invested, I think they kind of contacted me earlier on. They were quite persistent, and also just this amazing sort of really supportive guys. And I think just for everything that we wanted to do is like, hey, we share your vision. It's amazing what you're doing. They actually use the product and say, hey, we actually like using the product, and hence want to invest. So it was just this amazing fit. And I think it was
when it works, it works.
It works. Absolutely. And I think for me, just as a sort of business philosophy, I think work with the right people. The rest is easy. And you're not working with the right people when it isn't easy. Right, so it was just easy with these guys from the get-go.
And so, just to give a bit more insight to people that might be listening who are maybe thinking about starting their company, how did you decide how much money to raise and when to raise that money? How did you go about that process of evaluating?
I think I wish I could say that it was very well thought of, and it was sort of very calculated, and I wish it was, but unfortunately,
that's not the way it works.
No, it's not the way it works. Like that's you kind of plan for it to be that way, but it never actually turns out how you plan it. So initially, it's like, let's and also just I wasn't even planning on raising investment to kind of start with. So just with I left my previous job, was in like a very comfortable situation, had a lot of money in the bank. I said, hey, and I did raise money from my previous startup. I said, this time I want to do things different. Sure. I want to just sort of bootstrap this as long as I can. And ideally, if I can avoid raising funding, I'm going to avoid raising funding.
Sure.
And then life happens, and I think just midway is like, hey, go get into like instant parenthood. And now that you got 2 kids, and all of the nest egg that you had suddenly kind of disappears. And it's like, okay, I'm going to have to go raise funding or go get a job. It was just down to that at that point, where it's like, either I go raise funding or I'd be like, get a job, and this is a side hustle.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I've had these amazing guys. It's Tariq, Alex, and Sean. This amazing group of guys, and and from the beginning, they've been like, guys, we really believe in you. We want to make this happen. So
and
it's a no-brainer.
Are they like seasoned investors? This is what they do?
No, they're not seasoned investors. They're angel investors. 2 of them have full-time jobs. One owns a restaurant business out here. Alex, who owns Burger 28. So, if you haven't had burgers from Burger 28, please do. They're amazing.
I'm feeling a burger today.
Yeah.
Okay, and so is the recommendation, like, if you were to kind of summarize it, find people that you gel with.
Absolutely.
Find people that believe in you. Find people that where the relationship and the conversation is natural. It's not like you're trying to convince them all the time. You're not always selling.
Yep.
Because you're not selling anything at this moment. It's still an idea. You're still just building it. You don't know what it's going to be. So if they're investing in you, they're investing in you. They're not investing in Helwa, right?
Absolutely.
And so just to kind of summarize it is look for people that you gel with. Look for people where it's easy, where you can see yourself having a relationship with those people where if things get difficult, it'll still be okay.
Yeah. And
so the amount of money is whatever happens.
Yeah.
Obviously you have your objectives, and the timeline is whatever happens, right? That's entrepreneurship in a nutshell.
Yeah, 100%.
So where do you go from here? So where is Helwa today? What's the vision of the business? How has the progress been? How has the growth been? Tell us how you see the next couple of years playing out.
So I think, like I said, I think where we've come to now is we've come to sort of a realization of what our core product is, which is the Helwa engine that we've built, and we've kind of now seeing multiple applications of that Helwa engine.
Sure.
We've kind of built an amazing browser extension that continues to develop, scale to different markets, etc. We've got our app, which is now, again, a much more polished product than it used to be, offers much better value. And then beyond that, just kind of taking this back to sort of where, my sort of expertise has been, whether it's with the publishing industry, whether it's with gaming, whether it's with a bunch of other stuff. We see so many more applications of
Sure.
being able to use that engine for the gaming industry, for the publishing industry, for influencers. And we've even been contacted by some B2B players. A large bank got in touch recently saying, hey, let's see if we can bring value to our users through Helwa.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we're now seeing like a lot more sort of use cases for that engine.
And so you're focusing on an app product. You're focusing on being kind of the one-stop shop or aggregator or bringing together of offers and value and cashback, etc.
Yep.
And merchant kind of acquisition and stuff is happening more and more. What is the growth looking like from a consumer standpoint? Is it still a rapid growth? How does it look like if you can share information?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's I think this is one of the most sort of challenging things is always user acquisition, right? And just how do you get people to know about your product
Sure.
and get them to use it? And when we kind of first started and said, hey, you know what, this is free to download, it's going to save you money. It's like everybody should just download this.
Yeah.
Like they should be telling all of your friends and all of that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. I think you still need to go out and market it,
Of course.
and
Awareness is the
and
most
awareness
difficult part.
and all of that. And then we kind of then find, hey, you know what, we go back to this sort of user acquisition strategy where you pay X amount of dollars to get, X amount of users. And as long as your, the customer lifetime value is longer than your CAC, bigger than your CAC, you're in a good position and it's worth kind of investing in. So there's that sort of model that we initially kind of started with. And then we also then find that, hey, you know what, there's other things that you can do in growth hack where you don't have to go down that model, because I think it's just this sort of repetitive cycle of continuous going out and pumping dollars to get, and it's just nonstop. So we're kind of finding ways now to kind of break the cycle and acquire users another way. So yeah, it's going great. I think right now we're getting close to about 10,000 users.
Nice.
And I think in the next few
10,000 users from July to 7 months. It's pretty good. I mean, that's quite active. And the markets where you're active in are predominantly just the Gulf.
Just the UAE right now. Just the UAE, which is like the hardest market to acquire users.
Yeah, it's so segmented. It's all
yeah, exactly. And we've now kind of opened up. I think this week we're expanding to a GCC plus Egypt, which now just gives us a much bigger playing field.
Awesome. And so what does that mean team-wise? What does that mean resource-wise? What does that mean fundraising-wise? What does it mean for you now? What are your kind of biggest, if you were to summarize your top 3 biggest problems that you need to solve in the next 6 months, what are those problems?
Right now, I think the biggest problem is like, how do we kind of scale efficiently? As we kind of sort of grow and...
What does that mean, scale efficiently? Tell me more.
Just in terms of, how do we get a bigger team, and when do we get a bigger team? Okay. So it's not even a question of, again, a question of doing it at the right time is also very crucial. You don't want to go and hire a bunch of extra devs right at the very beginning and then realize, hey, you know what, we're paying out a lot more right now, and we're just kind of, we're burning a runway a lot faster than we should.
Is most of your technical resources still external to the company?
So the way that we've got it positioned is that we've got resources in different parts of the world, but they work full time for us.
They work full time for you, but they're not on your books. They're not your employees. They're just freelancers of sorts, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, they're full-time freelancers. I'm not freelancers because when I say freelancers, they don't work for other companies. They work exclusively with us.
Sure. I just want to give a clear picture to people who are building companies, because that point is a very big one, right? I think a lot of people have this fear that unless the developer is on my books, or my employee or part of the team or whatever, then it's a point of contention when raising money, like what are you investing, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't believe that at all, because the intellectual property or the asset that you're creating technically is still yours. So whether it's been built by John Doe or by yourself, at the end of the day, that property is still yours, right? And so at some point, of course, you want to bring it in-house for efficiency reasons, for speed reasons, for whatever. But there is you don't have a fear, and that's what I want to make sure that we're communicating, that you don't have a fear of having external resources.
No, not at all.
By definition, even if they're full-time, I know what you mean, but you don't have that inherent fear that it's bad for business.
Absolutely not. And also just coming, as a large part of my experience has been with the gaming industry. And if you look at how game development companies work, it's exactly this, right? They've got resources all over the world, and most of the team is generally remote. And it works because, you know what, as an example, if we for us, it's the company isn't just that one resource. Like if you didn't have a developer today, you can replace the developer. That's not the biggest problem. I think it's just building everything around it, just making sure that you've got relationships with the merchants on one side, you've got tech on the other side, and it's just building the whole thing together. That really is the company. But
I think that's super important, right? Because I don't think people generally say what you're saying. Right? I don't think people generally believe what you're saying. I think in their hearts, that's what they know and that's what they believe. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs say, oh, if I'm going to start a company, okay, you're a solopreneur. But if somebody wants to do it and have a co-founder, they often think that, you know what, if I don't have the technical experience, my co-founder does have to have the technical experience and technical know-how. And I think often it forces partnerships or co-founders to join where maybe their relationships or their characters will clash, but they still do it based on thinking that they're filling the gap of another, which I don't necessarily think is always true. Like, I completely agree with you with what I'm saying. I think if we're going to summarize this and say, hey, it's great if you have somebody on your books, it's great if you have a co-founder that's the technical person of it, but if it's not the case, it's absolutely totally okay, and sometimes even better for business, right?
Well, absolutely.
So I think that's an important point to make. So to summarize and to allow you to continue to finish your answer, but technical skill and technical resources is something that you're going to kind of have to scale efficiently in the next 6 months. And then I think you're going to say something else after that.
Yeah, and so I think technical skills and then scaling the product, I think that's the big thing. Scaling marketing as well is a huge challenge. And this is one of the things where, you kind of find out that if you are able to get, as an example, if you're able to get 1,000 users, let's say for $1 dirham each, right? When you kind of scale that to 1 million people, those metrics don't scale proportionally.
It's not linear.
It's not linear, right? So, and this is where I think you've got to figure out. You've just got to figure out your marketing mix and to figure out what kind of really works for you, and find other avenues to acquire customers. So I think scaling marketing is scaling the team. I think these are the big sort of challenges. I think we're quite lucky right now, where we're not at a stage where we particularly have big problems to fix. It's more so about, there's a lot of opportunities, and which path do we follow right now? Because there's 10 different options, and I think picking the right one and moving in that direction is a challenge. I think you got to pick the right one, and I think if you make a mistake here, you probably.
But it sounds like now what you're saying is the direction that you chose is, we are first an app-based business. We are first a deal saver, money or cash earner kind of solution, and you want to focus on making that product as good as possible and scaling that product as quickly as possible within, let's say, a geographic region of the Middle East.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's in a nutshell, hyper simplified, but in a nutshell, what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also just coming back to like why we're doing it, and this is to save people money. And as long as I think we kind of keep that core value in our heart to say, let's anytime you're faced with a decision, is like, is this the right thing or the wrong thing? I think you just go back to your values, and I think that kind of helps you make these decisions. Awesome. And which path to choose.
Very interesting. I'm super excited to hear more about kind of your progress and how things scale over the next couple of months, 6 months. I'm super grateful that you came to the office and that we finally met in person. Thank you so much for coming on Duck It, and I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully maybe we'll be able to work closely together at some point in the future.
Well, thank you, Chris. It's awesome meeting you, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure.